Hey there, and welcome to the channel. My name is Eric Hunley, and this is part 3 of, I've said it before, but I'll say it again, the interminable Prince Harry and Tom Bradby interview on ITV. Hopefully, you've had opportunity to see part 1, which Gavin is showing you now. And if I remember to do it correctly, part 2 also exists, and Gavin's going to show you that one now. And we have covered a lot of it, but people have been waiting for us to cover Harry's, what I call backtracking on calling the royal family racist. So in this video, we will be covering that because it comes toward the end of the interview with ITV. So we've been tracking that interview chronologically. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. How are you doing today, Gavin?
I'm brilliant, thank you. Got myself a very British cup of tea in an American mug, so I'm good to go.
Cheers. I have an all-American coffee in my historical Snoopy mug every generation. So cheers to you.
Brilliant. Cheers to you, sir.
Let us just get right to it.
The distorted narrative is that we wanted to leave to go and, make money. We were dedicated to a life of service, as is proven by everything that we're doing now with the work that we do. And the proposal was very much on the table publicly, which is we can't cope in this situation and we're going to put our mental health first. We've asked for help and support. At that time, I didn't fully understand how much or how complicit the family were.
Okay, a lot going on there. First off, he's appealing a lot like, did you get that? You get that? You believe me, right? Believe me. Complicit. My family.
There's
Go for it.
Lot of looks for approval all the way throughout that eyebrow raise that you picked up on there. But did anybody notice the hands? So do you remember in the last couple of episodes we've talking about he'll use one hand for something that's negative and something that's positive will be with the other hand. Now, again, if you notice with this, he turns around and he says, with his positive thoughts hand, we wanted to do, we were accused of going off to go and make money. And he's talking with this hand instead of our life and commitment to the service and to the country. And he's talking with his negative hand. So this is showing you from the last 2 videos. So if you haven't seen them, you must go back and watch. When he talks about something positive, he uses one hand. When he talks about something negative, he uses the other hand. And if you look back at that clip in a moment when we're done here, you will see that when he's talking about going off to make money, he's doing it with the hand that he uses his positive gestures with, and when he talks about the life of service, it's the negative gestures.
Hold on, I love that though, because he's denying going off to make money, so he's denying his positive experience. No wonder he's confused.
Yep. So that's a couple of things for you to take on board there, and then the other one was the lip compression, very slight lip compression when he was talking about contacting back at the palace or something like those lines.
Right at the very end,
yeah,
essentially.
Yeah.
Which is not that, but he also had the.
Yeah, again, there was a cluster of tells around there, the shrug, but the lip compression was one of the most kind of prominent, which shows like a withheld opinion or the fact that he's got more to say or more thoughts on that issue that he's not sharing.
Okay, and to set everybody straight, why are we saying this and this and this? Well, because if he just did one thing, so what? But when you add these all together, you start to say, something's wrong with this statement. Maybe he's not being as forthcoming as he appears, or maybe he doesn't quite mean what he says. So we'll continue and look at the next clip.
But there was a level of unconscious bias that existed within me that needed to be confronted.
Do you still think there is any realistic chance of a reconciliation that you have so clearly articulated that you want?
100%.
We've talked about that one before.
Yeah.
You love 100%.
Yeah.
Not 99, not 82. 100, Gavin.
I mean, again, that's just a big red flag for me. You got a couple of things there. When he's asked the question, his blink rate's through the roof, showing that his stress rate is getting a lot higher. And that 100%, we have mentioned it before. it's when people answer absolutely, 100%, definitely, 1,000,000%, when they're so kind of pushing and trying to amplify how they feel about something. They are putting it in that terms more so than just saying, yes, that's what I want. So, you know, if you change the question and say, would that same answer fit a different kind of question? Like if I was asking him something basic, like, hey, would you like a donut? Hey, would you like a chip? You know, and somebody said 100%, absolutely, it doesn't fit. It's not congruent. So sometimes that's the way to look at it. Just change the question and then say, right, are they trying to convince me or are they trying to just agree? So, and that's
or well, sometimes it is true. Like when Stephen Colbert offered him some tequila, he was very enthusiastic.
Yeah.
So it can sometimes be that way. But that's coming up in our next video when we cover this is the interminable one, which I can't seem to say. That's the insufferable one. So we got to get these right. But we're going to leave this series and we'll be doing the Stephen Colbert insufferable interviews.
The danger is that, I mean, what, you know, one might say, look, you haven't so much burnt your bridges as taken a flamethrower to them by being this honest in the book. They might say to you is, look, you've just destroyed any chance of a reconciliation.
Well, they've shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile up until this point. And I'm not sure how honesty is burning bridges. You know, silence only allows the abuser to abuse, right? So I don't know how staying silent is ever going to make things better.
It's commonly known as whataboutism.
Yeah.
He's not, and I think you had in your notes that this is where you get to see him being argumentative. And so it's like anything that comes out of him, it's the press, it's the family. My mommy died. Every single thing, it falls into a bucket. And I don't see, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gavin, I don't see a whole lot of, we could have done that better.
Yeah, there's no admission to fault there. I also want to point out there's a few sniffs that he does throughout this, which has been mentioned. But a sniff is different to a snort. And we mentioned this earlier on in I think it was video number 1, where he does this kind of... And I compared it to Mark Bowden's dog when the dog doesn't get a walk and he gets angry. You know, so that's very different because it was pulled up by somebody who said, he's sniffing all the time. Yes, he's sniffing, but when he snorts, that's something different. So I just thought I'd mention that there in case somebody wonders why that sniff wasn't picked up on. That was a sniff, not a snort.
Also, shout out to our friends at the behavior panel. They did go into it, that he is likely on antihistamine and having a cold. Not this interview, but another one. And these were all in a tight period, though. I think possibly all at Montecito. I'm not sure. But it's very possible he was suffering the same cold in both these interviews because of the placement of them. And that can also cause a dilation in his pupils because an antihistamine is a stimulant. So I always want to give every possible credit that I can, both to the behavior panel, who are amazing, great friends, but also if he's taking something for allergies, I suffer them too. I do not want to accuse him of something that is absolutely ridiculous. Then why are we here? That's just bonkers.
And I'm the same. I'm allergic to British weather. But the but the truth of the matter is, it will be very, very easy to just constantly pick on Prince Harry. Not least because he's ginger, but because of the fact that he's lining himself up for being picked on in so many ways. So we're not just picking on things and saying, this and the other. There are lots of ways we're slating. That's not what we're doing here. We are picking up on body language, statement analysis, psychology, and all different things, and coming together as to why he may or may not be doing something. So I just thought that might be relevant to point out there.
Yes, and by the way, sidetrack, and we'll go to the next video. It seems like ginger is one of the last groups that you can safely pick on.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? Thank you. Thank you, ginger.
In a free country, you got to have a free press. Someone's got to do it. We just got to rub along with them. That's not wrong, is it? That's not a crime, that attitude.
No, the scrutiny, 100%, the press...
The accepting of, just you can't control it. That's what I mean.
Well, my family have tried to control it for years. and they still try to control it because of their relationship with the British press.
But isn't that built in a
It's something they don't want to change because it benefits them, right?
It doesn't always benefit them.
No, it doesn't.
As you've said, sometimes
of course it doesn't. Yeah.
But my family,
Yep. Again, shifting
100%.
Yep. And you can see from the last video and from this one as well, he's put his hands back down, covering his genital area. He's kind of doing that thing he does with his thumbs again to kind of, you know, keep himself guarded there. He's got a semi-open posture, but because of the fact that he's covering the genital area, it is showing a level of him being reasonably guarded. He's not as open as he could be, not like some of the gestures he was making earlier when he was talking about things he was more comfortable with. So, and definitely this whole kind of not shouldering responsibility for anything is starting to wear very thin with a lot of people. You know, there's only so many times you can play the sympathy card. There's only so many times as a 38-year-old funny grown man you can say, but my mummy died when I was 12, right? You need to sometimes turn around and say, yeah, you know what? I screwed up.
Phone hacking happened a decade ago, gone, forgotten. And who have you got court cases against? And why is...
You probably know more than I do, don't you?
Well, it's a news story. We follow it.
Go on, you go first. So as a journalist.
Okay, you've got 3 cases which are very rarely referred to against News Group. You've got a case against the Mirror, which may or may not come to... I have to say, in all 3 cases, the accusations are very grave. And
Okay, I'm going to give him a little bit of credit there.
Mm-hmm.
That was a nice little pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that little exchange, I don't know much about the hacking, but I like what Harry did. He took the subject, said, well, you probably know more about it than I do. So now that was a slick little appeal to authority, because Brad B is a journalist, so he'd be an authority about what is going on in the media. He works in the media. He's there. This is a great way to fish out all the extra details and also say, I didn't say it. He said it. It's true. See? And so, you know, credit where credit is due. That was a nice little verbal parry.
It was brilliant. It was fantastically done. I remember doing something very similar years ago. I had to go and teach a subject I knew very little about at a hospital in London. And what I did, I got a room full of surgeons and lead nurses and doctors, and I actually got them to deliver the lesson to each other. I just acted as an agent by saying, well, you know, tell me about this. What do you think about that? Does everybody agree? And this is a perfect example. You know, he said, you probably know more about this than I do. He let him do all the talking, so he's technically answered his own question. And the whole time he sat there, he's got his head tilted, he's got a bit of a kind of closed lip, tight lip kind of look. I can't do it very well. I look like an idiot. And he's just gone, and he let him do absolutely everything, which takes him totally off the hook. So, and if you're interested, for anybody who doesn't understand phone hacking and how it works, it's quite simple. All the networks have a default PIN number that so when you buy a new phone, irrelevant to what network it's on, they have this default PIN number where you can phone your own phone when it's switched off and retrieve your answer phone messages. And if you don't change that PIN number, sometimes it's 1234, sometimes it's like 2222, depending on what network. If you don't change that to your own personalized PIN number, it just automatically keeps the default. So anybody can ring your phone, use the default, and get your messages, and then kind of mark them as unread, as it were. Nobody knows somebody else has heard your messages. And that was how all these news groups were doing this phone hacking and getting all this information without being traced. So there you go, a little educational lesson for you on phone hacking.
But it shows how social engineering and the foibles of people are the most effective tools for the hacker in the world. Most things are done through phishing, or in this case, counting on people being too lazy to change their default. Or if Gavin has to get into a network, if he can get into the building, say somebody's on the side smoking, he pretends he lost his badge, they let him in the door, and then he's got to get on a computer somewhere. He just starts looking under keyboards to find somebody who wrote down their password, again, because they're too lazy. Or the policies of the company are too ridiculous and they have to write it down in their opinion to remember it.
Yeah.
These are all things that are used all the time and very effective.
A couple of things. You talk about accountability. In the Oprah interview, you accuse members of your family of racism. You don't even...
No, we didn't.
Well,
The British press said that.
Right.
Have to interrupt that just for a quick second. Right. No, I love his. What? Right.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
Well,
The British press said that.
right.
Did Meghan ever mention that they're racist?
She said there were troubling comments about
There
Archie's
was
skin
concern
colour.
about his skin colour.
Right. Wouldn't you describe that as essentially racist?
I wouldn't, not having lived within that family.
Right.
He looks
Right.
He looks almost as if he's going, that's not what you were supposed to say. I thought you were meant... And he looks so confused because he knows he said it. We all know he said it. He may have not said it directly, but he certainly implied it in a way where it was unmistakable to kind of confuse it with anything else.
What I love about this is, well, we're not going to only show what he said. We will show what she said because, again, this is, everybody had a say, and this is very relevant.
In those months when I was pregnant, all around this same time, so we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
What?
Okay, there we go. Now, this is very important, and I deliberately left that what in because that punctuates it.
Yeah.
That's are you paying attention? She just told you. She just told you. What? And by the way, thank you, Oprah Winfrey, for stripping this off of the internet and hiding it to where nobody can. Now, why, Oprah, why would you remove an interview that was so popular from the internet? I thought you were a business. I thought you were about making money. But for some reason, we just don't want this interview out there. Why? Why is that? Technically, Harry is playing games of statement analysis. And it's almost the reverse, right, Gavin? In a typical statement analysis, you would say, Eric, did you take money out of the till? And I would say, I would never do that, Gavin. I would never do that. And I'm offended you think that. That's not who I am. Now, I never said I didn't do it in that entire time, but I made you think I was saying no. And I not only was saying no, I was saying no loudly. Well, what they're doing here is they're not saying the royal family is racist. They're saying everything around it loudly. So the same way you heard no, even though I never said no, everybody hears racist. And that was the intention that they wanted. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. There was no even follow-up with that, with Meghan turning around. Meghan could have jumped in at any point there and said, oh, don't get me wrong, there wasn't any kind of racist intent with the comments. They were just having conversation about, I wonder, will he be ginger? Will he have dark hair? Will he have this colour eyes? Will he have that colour eyes? So there's lots of different things that, that she could have said to put the record straight at that point. What she didn't was she said there was conversation about how dark his skin colour will be. Stop. And after that period, that's when it's emphasised by Oprah.
Right. Now, I don't have the other clip. I do have it somewhere, but I have to pull it out, and I don't have it now. But Oprah did ask her, could it be interpreted that he wasn't receiving the titles because of his skin color or his race? And I believe it was skin color. And she said, that's a fair assumption or something along those lines.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Please correct us in the comments, but that is in the interview as well. But I want to go on to Harry, what Harry actually said. This is all about Harry. The world's all about Harry. Spare us, Harry. Here we go.
And yet, Meghan shared with us that there was a conversation with you about Archie's skin tone. What was that conversation?
That conversation, I'm never going to share.
I'm never going to share that conversation. So You got the message. I don't have to give details.
Yeah.
I'm never going to share. You got the point.
But at the time it was awkward. I was a bit shocked.
Can you tell us what the question was?
No, I'm not comfortable sharing that.
Okay.
But that was right at the beginning, right?
No, I'm not comfortable sharing that. At the time I was shocked. It was bad, Gavin. How bad was it? It was really bad. What was said? Ooh, I can't say because it was so bad.
Like, what will the baby look like?
Yeah, what will the kids look like?
Yeah, what will the kids look like?
But that was right at the beginning when she wasn't going to get security, when members of my family were suggesting that she carries on acting because there's not enough money to pay for her and all this sort of stuff. Like, there was some real obvious signs before we even got married that this was going to be really...
It's interesting because the way you said it was talks about what the baby would look like. You have a daughter. Did you guys talk about what she'd look like?
Yeah, of course we did. I mean, it's one of those things where, of course, anybody expecting parents or newly wed couples or anything like that, one of the first things you say, I wonder what the kids are going to look like. People say when they see beautiful actors and actresses that become married and they say, oh, wow, I bet they're going to have beautiful kids. At the same time, you get like kind of Quasimodo and kind of whoever, and you go, well, I wonder what the kids are going to look like. So it's one of those conversations that I had in every family all the time. My main issue with this is not putting anything right. They could have said anything, absolutely anything, and he's steering the conversation towards where he wants you to think in a particular way, and then when he's asked specifics, he's like, no, I'm not going to share that. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not comfortable with sharing that.
Yes, and to point out the last point on this, he's denying it was racism in this interview. He's playing the unconscious bias game in this interview. I have one last piece of evidence, and I did a video with Nate on the Nate and Eric channel. Gavin will show you where that one is. We're a well-oiled team here, guys. You have one job, Gavin. One job. And we talk about this, and I'm going to share it right here. If this wasn't about racism, why did you accept an award? Why did you accept the Ripple Award about racism?
I don't think he's had more than one award, hasn't he?
Perhaps. I know for sure he got the Ripple Award, though, from Robert F. Kennedy. Big fanfare, flew to New York, did all of that. So, you know what? If it's not, why did you take the award? And I ask you, so we're going to close out with this one question. And everybody, remember, Stephen Colbert's coming up. But should Harry and Meghan give the award back if it wasn't racism? I personally think they should, but I will leave it to you in the comments. Should they give this award back if they're claiming now this wasn't racism? I'll be sure to subscribe and check out the new episode when we go into Stephen Colbert. Woo! We had to watch that one, so you don't have to. And that one leads us to one question, and that is, who is a more insufferable pair? Chris Cuomo and Alec Baldwin, or Prince Harry and Stephen Colbert? So plant that question in your mind, and I hope to see you in the next video.